Hello, my beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. It is the most wonderful job. This is the longest I've done any work. I've been doing this now for I think I'm in my 18th year, or my 19th, but somewhere around there. I started in 2006. As I record this, it's early in the morning, and I was just thinking it's too early for me to do the math on that, but I've been doing this a long time. And what a blessing that is, to have longevity in this kind of work. And so I offer one-on-one angel sessions, which are wonderful, and a variety of classes to inspire your spirit. And if you are looking for community or an intimate experience where you can learn and contemplate and grow, I invite you to check out my classes. I have a new class that starts just about every 6 weeks. They're always changing. So right now I'm in the middle of teaching a beautiful class in co-creating miracles in business and life. And I don't know what's going to come after that. It's one of the mysteries of this work is I typically do not plan ahead. I go with the flow and see what inspires me. And you can sign up to be on my mailing list at my website, illuminatingsouls.com, so when I know what I'm offering, you will know as well. There's 2 different mailing lists you can sign up for. At the top of the page, you can sign up for my regular mailing list, and you will get all of my announcements. And then further down on the page, you can sign up for my daily inspiration email blast, and you'll receive an inspiring email from me every weekday. I also post regularly over on my Facebook page, so lots of ways we can connect. But for now, the angels and I are in this very sweet and loving, cozy space for you. Whether you listen during your waking hours, or whether you use this as a broadcast to help you drift off to sleep, welcome. I'm grateful that you're here. And if you are a regular listener, I do have a small request, which is, will you please leave a rating or review on whatever podcast app you use to listen? It really helps the algorithm recommend this podcast to other people who might enjoy it. So as I record this, it is early morning. It is my preferred time to record. It is still dark out. And I still feel like half in and half out. You know that really delicious experience in the early morning? Well, maybe you don't, but I will describe it to you. That some mornings I feel like I'm only half in my body. Another part of me is still floating out there somewhere, and that's sort of how I feel this morning, which is nice. It's nice to come to you in this dreamy in-between space where we can be together with the angels. And so I just invite you to get comfortable in your body in whatever way is available to you. Maybe your body is not a comfortable place to be right now, but if that's the case, just let the angels bring to you the energy of comfort. And I'm going to do the same, and we'll take some nice deep breaths in and out together. And allow the love of this moment to flow to you now. I feel the love of the angels here with us. And they're bringing forward a very sweet assurance. Like it's all going to be okay, even if it's not okay. And I don't know who this is for, but I remember when I was going through a really difficult time and a friend had shared with me something someone had shared with her. It's kind of a game of spiritual telephone. And it's that it's okay if it's not okay right now. So whether you're feeling like things are great or not great, if you're feeling okay or not okay, I just want you to know that in this moment there is so much love meeting you here. It's one of the things I so appreciate about working with the angels is no matter where we are, the angels meet us here. That the angelic connection is not something that we have to perform for. We have to become meditative and raise our vibration or perform rituals. It's available to us wherever we are, whether we're in the doldrums, whether we're feeling uplifted. Wherever we are, they meet us where we are. The only thing that we need to do is to open to receive this love and remember that it is here. And I always bring forward this encouragement because it is reasonable that we forget about the angels, because this life is not focused upon them. It is focused upon our own personal, unique incarnation, which takes up a tremendous amount of space in our consciousness. And listen, I do this work full time. I've been doing it for 18 something years, and I forget to connect with the angels. I don't mean that like, oh my God, even Laurel, I don't mean it that way. I just more mean it's appropriate not to remember all the time, because this is our life, this is your life, and this is my life. And life takes up a lot of bandwidth. Life asks a lot of us. We are always processing a tremendous amount of information and data and stimulus and emotions. You know, it reminds me of a channeled message that I brought forward, many years ago. And so Josephus and the Wisdom Council are the group of guides that I channel, and Josephus is the primary guide, and so it is his personality that typically comes forward, but all of the messages are always transmitted from the perspective of we, so the group collective. And one of the things that they said is that on a day-to-day basis, most of us are processing more data points than have ever been processed before. If you think about how much stimulus we are exposed to on a daily basis versus the kind of stimulus that ordinary people were exposed to 200 years ago or 300 years ago. Much of society was based on repetitive tasks, right? Doing the laundry and cooking and taking care of the animals and farming and weaving, and whatever your task was, you did it day in and day out. And there wasn't the kind of stimulus that we have today. I'm not saying their lives were easy. It just means in terms of consciousness, if you think about how rapidly we learn now because we have access to information like never before. You know, it was rare to have access to libraries of books 200 years ago, and to have the time to study and learn and synthesize lots of information. And we do this every day now on our little phones. These little miracle things that we hold in our hands, and we have, 30-second, 1-minute TikToks, and we are bombarded with streams of consciousness. And so we're processing more consciousness and data than ever before. And so this brings us back to the angels. So if you are not remembering to connect with the angels all the time, it is understood why. We process so much every minute of every day. And so right now the angels meet you with compassion and understanding that whatever is transpiring in your life and however you are navigating it, that you are loved and you are seen and you are witnessed and you are appreciated. And we are so deeply grateful for the gift of you. And you know, the other thing I want to reflect upon before I call the angels in with you is, I don't know about you, but I have been feeling some really deep fatigue this week. And listen, you may be listening to this 5 years from now, so perhaps that energy's over. But in this moment, when I record this, it has been really tiring this week, and when I posted about it on Facebook, it seems that many other people are feeling this wave of fatigue too. So if you happen to listen to this shortly after I have recorded it, and you're feeling a little more tired than usual, you're not the only one. Good news. Hopefully, this means that the energy will lift soon, and there will be opportunities to feel a bit brighter than we might right now. So take a nice deep breath in and we'll let it go, just whatever that is. We'll just release it, whatever your it is. Whether it is your prayers or your dreams, the beautiful new inspirations that might be blossoming in your spirit, anything that feels heavy or like it's too much for you. We'll just hand this over to the angels. We'll let the angels take over. And I'm going to call the angels in now. They're already here, but I love sharing the ritual with you. So beautiful angels on high, I ask that you join us here. And I ask that you infuse this broadcast with waves of love and light and lightness of spirit and service to each of our beloveds hearing this message. Angels, I ask that you help lift us up above whatever feels heavy or like it is too much. Help to lift us up so that we can feel brighter. We feel connected with the beautiful, sweet energy that you are bringing to us now. Please help to clear our fears, our concerns, our worries through the heart of God, knowing that right where we are, God is, the light is. So friends, just take a nice deep breath in, letting the love pour to you. Receiving the love. And if you have any prayers or intentions that you would like to share with the angels and God, I invite you to bring them into your heart now. And your prayers can be informal, they can be in whatever language, combination of words, formal or informal. For instance, sometimes my prayers sound like this, like, hey angels, can you help please? This thing that I'm experiencing feels convoluted, confusing, and I sense I am making it more complicated than it needs to be. So can you please help me move through a path of ease on this journey? I am open to receiving ease and grace and joy and goodness and lightness of spirit. And please support me in my endeavors that they are laced with joy, not only for me, but for anyone who will receive the tendrils of light created through these adventures. And so you feel free to ride the coattails of this prayer if this resonates for you. I don't know about you, but I have a tendency to overcomplicate things. You know, the shortest point between two distances? Well, let's go around the block a few times. Let me just think about every possible outcome and do a risk assessment, and I overcomplicate things sometimes. Perhaps you can relate. So one of the lessons that I learned last year was the path of ease. I mean, I've known about ease before last year, but when I was creating my oracle deck, that was one of the things that kept coming forward, like pick the easiest path, Laurel. What makes it easy? What makes it low-hanging fruit? What's an easy yes? And as long as I kept following the easy yes, I could move forward. So here's to our easy yeses. So let's take a deep breath in and breathe in prayers for ease and grace. You know, the term, and I've said this at least 3 times, is lightness of spirit. I'm just breathing in on that, and I invite you to do the same. As the angels invite us to come into a place of lightness of spirit, bringing this vibration into our physical bodies and our energy bodies and our consciousness, allowing us to be lifted up above this moment, lifting our metaphoric feet off the ground for a little while so that we are not as influenced by what is happening in physical world, and we can reconnect with the true brightness of spirit, of source, of the greater expanse of all that we are. And just breathe in your wholeness and the beauty of all that you are. And there is such sweet energy here with us. And I share this with you with gratitude for this opportunity to love you in this moment, because you are precious in this world. And I am so grateful for you. So take another deep breath in, and if you are preparing for sleep, I invite you to cozy on up and snuggle on in. As you know, I am someone who loves bedtime, and so I send to you the joy of bedtime, of curling up, knowing that it is your time to rest. And if you're in the middle of your day and working or driving, stay awake, please. And I send you love too. That as you go about your day, that the love finds you and miracles are present for you. And so with that, my beautiful friends, we are going to move on into story time. And for story time, I thought I might share a couple of randoms with you and also share with you a stack of community cookbooks that I purchased, I don't know, about a week or so ago at an estate sale, and tell you all about that, and we can flip through some of the books. But first I want to share a random with you, just a very sweet memory that came to me the other day. So as I record this, it is March 16th, which means that tomorrow is March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day. And it's not a holiday I celebrate, but I grew up in the Chicago area, and St. Patrick's Day is a thing in Chicago. They even dye the Chicago River green every year. Now, it's sort of a muted shade of green anyways. It's not this beautiful, clear, crystal blue river. It is an urban river. But I mean, they dye it green for St. Patrick's Day. But the memory that I was connecting with is that for St. Patrick's Day, our local bagel shop, York Bagels Bialy, would always make green bagels. They were the plain flavor, and they were dyed a color green similar to a McDonald's Shamrock Shake. So if you ever had a Shamrock Shake, they were about that color, but they weren't mint flavored or anything. They were always the plain bagels, but they dyed them green. And as kids, we loved our green bagels. So I was just thinking, if this were 50 years ago, I would likely be eating a green bagel that my father had brought home from York Bagels Bialy. Because on Sundays, my father would always go out and get fresh bagels. My father was always the first one up in the house. I have inherited his circadian rhythm, so now I am up early too. And the thing about York Bagels Bialy is, and I don't know if this is still true, but certainly back in the day, they were open 24 hours a day because they baked bagels and rolls for local restaurants. And so it was the coolest thing that, if I was coming home from, the bars with my friends or something at 2 a.m, we could always stop at York Bagels Bialy and get a hot bagel, a hot, fresh bagel. There was always a hot, fresh bagel available because they never stopped making them. And they were they were and are still really good bagels. And they are made where they boil the bagels and then they bake them. So they have sort of the crunchy outer shell and then they're really soft inside. And they're smaller than the massive bagels people make now. It's a really appropriately sized bagel. And I grew up with them. And so for St. Patrick's Day, they would always have the green bagels, and my father would always be delighted to bring home the green bagels. So this is an ode to my childhood of green bagels for St. Patrick's Day, and my dad, who always was so happy to bring them home to us. And also an ode to York Bagels Bialy, which I still crave to this day. No matter how good a bagel is that I find somewhere else, I miss my York Bagels Bialy. And if you're wondering what my order would normally be, I'm actually a fan of their Bialys. They are onion Bialys, which are so good. And their Bialy sticks. And then I like a good egg bagel or an everything bagel, which they also will call mishmash. Such a great name, a mishmash bagel. And they would have bagel chips because there would always be old bagels that would get chopped up and made into chips. And then they had great deli. And then they also had all the great Jewish bakery stuff like black and white cookies and rugula and mandel and Danish and everything. I love York Bagels Bialy. And whenever it was cold, right, it gets so cold in Chicago, and you would walk in and the windows would be steamed up from the humidity. And so you would come out of the freezing cold into this warm bakery that smelled like fresh baked bread. And then we would always ask, which bagels are warm? Because they weren't always all warm, right? Which ones did they just make? And typically the person would then go and sort of touch different bagels and say, oh, these are warm, right? The pumpernickel are warm, or the cinnamon raisin are warm. And those would be the ones to get. And then they put them into a paper bag, and they also give you a plastic bag on the side. And you would walk back out into the cold with this bag that was radiating warmth and smelled delicious. And that first bite into a hot, warm, beautiful, delicious bagel when the weather was cold was just heaven. For any of you who love carbs. And then the other adjacent memory from New York Bagels and Bialy's was there were 2 different restaurants in Skokie. Maybe one was in Lincolnwood. I don't know. I think it was still Skokie. That when you would go to the table in the restaurant, they would bring you a basket of bread. And the bread was always miniatures, like miniature Bialys and stuff from New York Bagels and Bialy's with butter. So you'd sit down and you would get fresh, like Bialy sticks, like little miniature rolls with butter. And so one of the restaurants was called Jack's, which used to be open 24 hours a day. It's now not even open. And Jack's was where you went when you wanted like a BLT or a burger or breakfast. It was a diner. And so many a meal at Jack's. And then the other was called Barnum and Bagel, which was a Jewish deli and like had the best soup, chicken soup, matzo ball soup, vegetable soup, like what, any kind of soup. And you would get your basket of bread. And so neither one of those restaurants still exists. So ode to Jack's and Barnum and Bagel. New York Bagels and Bialy still exist, and my cousin actually brought me some bagels from there in December, and they were delicious. So, yay. And I think that wraps up my ode to Skokie Bagels and Bialy's. Well, it's okay. It's New York Bagels and Bialy's in Skokie, but actually they might be in Lincolnwood. I'll tell you why I get confused. Skokie and Lincolnwood are really close to each other, and they just get separated by a street here and there. And so this is why I get confused. Is it Skokie or Lincolnwood? Like they're really close, and the border jogs a little bit. If you're from the area, you know what I'm talking about. And if you're not, it doesn't really matter, right? Because if you ever are in the area, you'll just put the address into your GPS, and the magic of navigating by satellite will take you where you need to go. Is that a remarkable thing? As someone who lived before we had GPS, I just have to give a shout out to how wonderful GPS navigation is. But that's not what this episode is about. So perhaps there will be another episode about my love of some of the newfangled inventions that are now everyday occurrences that I have seen developed in my lifetime, as have you in all likelihood, including GPS, which I love. Okay, so now we're going to shift randoms over to this lovely selection of community cookbooks that I was fortunate to get at an estate sale. So I don't do estate sailing every week. I'm not just a random estate sale person. There has to be something I'm interested in order for me to go. So I typically will look for estate sales that might have coins, something that's of interest to me. And if I see community cookbooks, I'm in. I'm going to go, unless it's really far away. And if you're ever interested in hunting down community cookbooks, here's the telltale sign of knowing that you can find community cookbooks at an estate sale. It will be probably a picture of books on a bookshelf, which many estate sales have, but you'll see a stack of spiral-bound books next to each other. That's a telltale sign because community cookbooks are almost always spiral-bound. And if you don't know what a community cookbook is, because perhaps this is your first time listening to Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, let me share with you what that is. So, back in the day, 30s, 40s, even to the present day, typically groups of almost always women, men could be involved in them, but most community cookbooks were put together by groups of women. They would bring their recipes together and create a cookbook that they would then sell as a fundraiser. So whether it was a temple sisterhood, a PTA, a church group. And the thing that I'm so fascinated about by community cookbooks is this was before the internet. So you couldn't just go onto your phone or your computer and pull up a recipe and have a choice of 40 different recipes. You maybe had some cookbooks at home, but there was something about the way people cooked back then as well that I find so fascinating, because this was back in the day before fast food and prepared food in a big way like we do today. And so a lot of the recipes are a can of this, a half a bottle of that, and that's the kind of cooking I grew up with. So I love community cookbooks. So this particular estate sale was taking place in Vacaville, which is about 20 miles away from here. So it was definitely within my radius that I would be willing to go to. And as I was looking at pictures that had been posted for the estate sale, I saw the telltale signs. I saw a shelf or two of the spiral-bound books, and I knew they were community cookbooks because nothing else comes that way. Like if it's one spiral-bound book, I don't think it's a community cookbook. But if there's 10 or 12 of them, chances are I have met another community cookbook collector. And so I hopped in my car because I saw it that morning, and I made a beeline. I'm like, I'm going to be there early. And it's not as if everybody runs to the community cookbooks, but I wanted to make sure. Sure enough, there were several dozen community cookbooks. I did not buy them all. I tend to like the ones that are older, or the community is of interest to me, the group of people who put together the community cookbooks. So I wound up buying 8 or so, and plus another little book. And I'm not going to flip through and read recipes from all of them right now, but I did want to just go through each book and tell you which ones I got, because I haven't looked at these since I bought them, and I want to know too, like, what did I get? So the first one that's on top is called Stove Pilot, and this is compiled by the Officers' Wives Club of Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. This is volume 2. It's the 10th anniversary, first edition, for the benefit of United States and overseas relief. And I'm not sure when it was published, but it looks old, meaning definitely before the 80s, maybe the 70s or 60s. One of the things that drew me to this one is all of the recipes are handwritten. So it's in somebody's handwriting. So for instance, I just opened up to a Roquefort cheese salad dressing. I always love a Roquefort gorgonzola blue cheese dressing. Okay, and I will share with you a recipe from here that my younger self would have loved. Now I wouldn't eat it, but okay, sweet potato casserole. So 3 cans of sweet potatoes. So you know we're starting off sweet. 3 tablespoons of molasses. And they're saying it's Bren Rabbit molasses. So that must be a certain brand. A half a cup of chopped walnuts. A half a cup of brown sugar. And a 1/4 pound of butter or margarine. And of course we would use, I shouldn't say that. If you're a vegan, you'd use margarine. But I'm just saying, flavor-wise, I would have used butter. And marshmallows. So it is a sugar fest where the sweet potatoes are basically a carrier for other forms of sweet things. And this is from Betty S. Wolfe, Mrs. Frederick S. And there's even a drawing of 2 little sweet potatoes holding hands. It's a very sweet cookbook. So that's the first one. And I will say, whoever's estate sale this was, they were likely related to the Air Force. So we are not too far from Travis Air Force Base because there were a lot of Air Force related books here. So this is the first one, Stove Pilots. The next one is called Atomic Secrets, Eatomic. And this was published in 1954. So, back then, atomic bombs, nuclear energy, like all of that. So atomic, a little play on words. And this is the Sandia Base Women's Club in Albuquerque, New Mexico, for the benefit of Women's Club charitable activities. And this is the first edition, published in 1954. And there is a very sweet, funny forward. It says, through the efforts of a special investigating committee of the Sandia Base Women's, which penetrated the security barriers guarding treasured kitchen secrets of club members, a host of delightful recipes has been revealed. The recipes cover a broad range of subjects, typifying the diverse nature of the Army, Navy, Air Force, and civilian elements which comprise the Women's Club at this atomic base. So it was an atomic base. All recipes have been triumphantly proof-tested by families, guests, and discriminating gourmets. These culinary treasures are revealed to the general public for the first time in this book of Atomic Secrets. Mrs. P.J. Long, and her name is Perdita Long in the Air Force. And I'll give you just one random recipe. This is Jell-O applesauce salad. And once I read this to you, tell me if your inner child can taste this. This is certainly like a taste profile from my childhood. 1 package of Jell-O, any flavor. 1 cup of applesauce, the juice of 1 orange, and 1 bottle of 7-Up with 1 glass of ginger ale. So you heat it all up and then you chill it. And this is from Virginia Austin, whose husband must have been in the Navy. So a good Jell-O mold made with 7-Up and ginger ale and fruit of some kind, definitely a part of my childhood. This next one is a really substantial book. It's from the Women's City Book Club of Detroit, Michigan. The first edition was published in May of 1935. The second edition was April of 1936. And the third edition was January 1940, which I'm assuming that's the one that I have here. And it says this is dedicated to the 6,000 members of the Women's City Club of Detroit. All right, and here's an appropriate recipe to share with you. Angel dessert. Isn't that perfect? This is in the frozen and cold desserts section. So we take 2 eggs, 1 cup of sugar, 1 level teaspoon of baking powder, 1 cup of chopped dates, 1 cup of chopped English walnuts, 1.5 pints of cream, and 4 round tablespoons of flour. So you beat the eggs and sugar together, then add the flour and baking powder, nuts and dates. Pour sparingly into muffin tins and bake until brown. Whip 1.5 pints of cream very stiff. adding 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar and a little flavoring. Crumble the cakes and stir the crumbs into the cream. Serve in sherbet glasses with maraschino cherries. The cake may be made a day or 2 in advance. Serves 18 or 20. Okay, so a couple things about this. First off, if you've listened to any of my community cookbook episodes before, you know that as a child, anything that involved a maraschino cherry was pure joy. Maraschino cherries were the gateway to deliciousness as a child, so you've got me at maraschino cherries. And serves 18 or 20. Are you kidding? There's nothing in here. There's not enough volume here to serve 18 or 20 anything. I don't know how that works. But apparently back in the day, this would have been the way you would have portioned this out. I'm thinking this is enough for maybe 3 of us. So you know that if you came to my house for an angel dessert, you would have a substantial portion. I promise. And I just have to give an aside how much it is delighting me to honor this woman's, I'm sure it's the woman who put this collection together, her book of community cookbooks with you, because clearly she loved them, and I'm so happy to share them with you. So this next one is the Alma College Cookbook. I guess Alma is a college. I haven't heard of that before. And there's a personal inscription in it, and it says to Lois, and it was written on April 2nd, 1956, with best wishes, sincerely, Arlene E. Dubois and Dorothea Ann Jonas's mother. And so this is the Alma College Cookbook, and it's from Alma College alumni and faculty, and it was published in 1948. All right, and I looked it up, and Alma College is in Alma, Michigan. It is a private Presbyterian liberal arts college, and it enrolls approximately 1,400 students, and it is affiliated with a Presbyterian church. And this is one of the rare community cookbooks that has a hardcover. So it's still spiral bound, but it has a hardcover versus, like a cardboard cover. So let's see if I can find us a recipe. Okay, well, the very first recipe in the book is one after my own heart because it's easy. So it's a fruit cup. I mean, who doesn't want a good fruit cup? So you take 1 cup of fresh pineapple sections, 1 cup of orange sections, and 2 cups of sweet pitted cherries. And you arrange them in cocktail cups and pour over the top 1/2 cup of chilled ginger ale. I'm in, all in. And this is from Mrs. J.W. Hensel. Okay, I have another one to share with you. One of my favorite things about community cookbooks is they assume the reader already knows how to cook and bake things. So this was 1956, and there's an assumption that someone knows how to cook, and actually this recipe is from somebody, I guess, who attended in 1906. Wow. Let me share with you what it is. It's cinnamon rolls, because we all love cinnamon rolls, right? So you're going to have bread dough. That's all it says. If you are a housewife back then, you know how to make bread dough. Sugar. How much sugar? You know how much sugar. Cinnamon and melted fat. This is the ingredients. Bread dough, sugar, cinnamon, and melted fat. I love this recipe. So you're going to roll the dough 1/4 inch thick and spread with melted fat. Butter, margarine, hopefully. Then you're going to sprinkle it with sugar and cinnamon and make a long roll, which is then cut into pieces 1 inch thick and laid flat on a greased tin. Let rise until light and continue. As for plain rolls, ice when baked with confectioner's sugar and hot milk, and then sprinkle with chopped nuts. And this is from Frederick J. Sowell. I'm assuming that's Mrs. Frederick. That's typically how they were naming people then. Although perhaps this is from Mr. Frederick, I don't know. 1906. Isn't that fascinating? This person went to school there in 1906. Wow. So of course they're going to assume that you know how to make bread dough. And then you're just going to put stuff on it and make cinnamon rolls. I love this. Okay, this can easily be its own episode, this particular cookbook. So we're going to definitely come back to this one for another episode. All right, the next one is local to me. It is the favorite recipes of the Vacaville Ward Relief Society of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Vacaville, California. That's the city where I actually bought these. That's where the estate sale was being held. And I think this must be from the 50s. It really has that look about it. There is not a date, but it really looks like it is an older book. And it says this book is dedicated to homemakers everywhere, by the young or old, just married or veterans on the road to marriage. May you use this book with the same spirit of love and sisterhood with which it was prepared. And it has a bunch of different things you can look at the beginning, like the quantities for cooking, and then it has canning hints. I don't know why, I just went to this one. Use only sack salt for pickles and kraut, because other salt has been treated and will soften, discolor, and give unpleasant taste to the pickles. Interesting, I didn't know that. Not that I really make pickles very often. I sometimes will make new pickles, but they're not very good, so it's not even worth talking about. Because just as another random, oh, how I miss a good new pickle. New pickles are newer than dill pickles, meaning they don't necessarily have the, they're crunchier and they're much more mild. And so I love a good new pickle, and I have tried to make them myself and not terribly successfully. And there's lots of great local ads in here. So again, I think this can be its own episode. So we will definitely come back to this particular community cookbook. Okay, another recipe after my own heart because it's easy. It's a cherry cheese pie. And so it's a tart. So 1 packet of graham crackers crushed and mixed with 1/3 cup of melted butter. That's going to be your pie tin. Or you can now just buy a graham cracker crust pie tin at the grocery store. You'll press it into the bottom of an 8x8 inch pan. You're going to whip 2 packages of 3 or 4 ounces of cream cheese. This is going to be delicious. With 1/2 cup of sifted powdered sugar. Add 1 cup of heavy cream, whipped, mixed together, and spread on top of the cracker. Allow it to sit in the refrigerator for several minutes, like 30, in case you were wondering. It says that there. Not in case you were wondering. It just says, they're not snarky. It just says in parens, like 30. And then spoon on 1 can of cherry pie filling and refrigerate. This sounds very much like the cherry cheesecake my mom would make. So definitely have a relationship to this goodness. All right, the next one looks like it was one that may have been bought at a store. It's called Ma's Cooking, Mountain Recipes, spiced with mountain customs, sayings, and superstitions. And it has $1 as the price in the corner. And this is by Sis and Jake. It was copywritten in 1966, and the second printing is 1969. And it's printed by Ozark Made Candies. M-A-I-D. Ozark Made Candies. Okay, so since this one was published by a company, I'm not going to read too much from it. I'm going to look this up a little bit more and see. But that's one of the books that I bought. Another one that I got is Old Time Cookery. It's a unique collection of quaint and genuine early American recipes, popular from Maine to Florida in colonial days. And this is by A. Monroe Orend Jr., published by Orend Press in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I'm not sure when it was published. Again, I'm not going to read from this one because it looks like it was written and published by an individual, so I tend not to read those. And then our final one that we have is the Guild Cookbook from First Lutheran Church in Humboldt, Iowa. And let's see if I can find a date here. It does say that this was Mary Hankins' book. She's the mom of Clinton. Well, all I can tell you is I know this is old because the phone number for the Hawkeye Cabinet Company is listed as 290W. So I don't know what that means, but let's see if I can find a date in here. So this really is from a long time ago because these are phone numbers. So Shalivert Plumbing, their phone number is 791. Chriselle's Ice Cream Shop, their phone number is 689J. So there must have been a sequence of numbers that automatically said that this is Humboldt, Iowa, and then you just dial the rest of the numbers. I don't know how that works. But clearly, this was a long time ago. And the phone number for Ulrich's Grocery, Meat and Fruit in Dakota City is 514. I'm fascinated. I've never seen that before, so I wonder what that means. All right, let me give you a recipe. Sweet cream corn bread. Doesn't that sound delish? 3/4 of a cup of yellow cornmeal, 1 1/4 cups of sifted flour, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, and then you're going to add 2 eggs beaten, 1/4 cup of sugar, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1 cup of thick cream. Beat vigorously until smooth. Pour into greased 9-inch square pan. Bake in hot oven of 425 degrees for 30 minutes. Serves 8. Mrs. Cliff Lander. Okay, so again, our big portions in 2024, a 9-inch square pan, and if it serves 8, people are getting a very teeny tiny piece of the sweet cream corn bread. Yeah, I'm thinking more like you'll be lucky to get 6 pieces out of there. So again, I will definitely come back to this particular community cookbook. I'm fascinated by it and try to figure out when it was printed. And the final thing that I purchased at this estate sale was a reprint of the Sears Roebuck and Company 1909 catalog, but it's in a really small book. It's a modern book. But I thought that was just really interesting. It is... Wait, hold on. Oh my God, wait. I just opened it to look at the print. The print is so small. I am going to need a magnifying glass to read anything in it. I mean, so small. Okay, think small type and then reduce that by 90%. And that is how small this type is. I mean, really, I think maybe it's 2-point type. It's teeny tiny and I can barely read it. But that'll be interesting someday. We'll look through that as well. So that's the randoms for this particular episode. And I have lots of good stuff we can go through in future episodes. And I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. So my ode to New York Bagels and Bialys, my ode to whoever had a collection of community cookbooks in Vacaville that are now part of my collection that I get to share with you, to the women who put together these community cookbooks, thank you, across the centuries, because now we're in 2 centuries, right? At least, right? If that one person went to college in 1909, we are definitely spanning a couple centuries. That's pretty cool. So my beautiful friends, thank you for letting me share this with you. I wish you the sweetest of dreams. I wish you goodness and light. And I look forward to connecting again soon. Thank you.